Hey everybody, I wanted to make this video today, and I'm not talking about my website, I'm not talking about records, but I am going to talk about something that's Beatle related, and it has to do with this new Beatles magazine that came out. I think this came out a couple of weeks ago, or at least I saw it a couple of weeks ago, but I picked this up over the weekend, got this at Barnes & Noble, and I wanted to talk about this because this is called The Beatles Vinyl Buyer's Bible. And it's by a company called Long Live Vinyl, which I've never really heard of. But there's the cover. And this is imported from the UK. So it says here, there's a little sticker on it. It says printed in the UK. And I paid $21 for this, which is pretty expensive for a magazine. But it's kind of a nicer magazine. It's got this cool back cover. And it's got nicer paper than like a normal thin magazine. But I have a bunch of problems with this magazine, and I think first and foremost, my problem with this magazine is there are tons and tons of errors in here. And I'm not talking just little errors, I'm talking big time errors. First and foremost, they claim to have an album by album collector's guide, except they don't have Yellow Submarine, the album, listed in here. Which, while I get that wasn't a major Beatles album, it definitely was a Beatles album because it had 4 new songs on there. Hey Bulldog, All Together Now, It's All Too Much, and Only a Northern Song. So that's a big omission, in my opinion. It also doesn't list Magical Mystery Tour. And while, of course, that was released as an EP in the UK, it definitely, I think, needs to be included in here because it had essential Beatles music that everyone needs to own, and especially if you're just a beginner when it comes to the Beatles and you're trying to figure out what records to buy, you got to have Magical Mystery Tour on here, or at least list it. You could have the American compilation that, of course, went on to become the official album, but they don't even have that on here at all, which is very, very odd to me. So those are 2 major omissions. Another bit of weirdness in here is that for the album, I believe it's for each album they do a little write-up about the back history and stuff, which that's all very nice. It's nothing new, it's all just general information, but it's good for a beginner as far as someone trying to collect the Beatles records and they want to know a little bit of back history on the albums. But also for each album they list the songs for the album in this thing right here, and then they list what each of the members of the Beatles did on that record. Problem is, for the Help album right here, and I'm going to get a little closer so you can see this. This is for the Help album now. So you see you got Help, Night Before, all the songs on Help. Only thing is, when it comes to the personnel, they have the personnel listed for the Please Please Me album. As you can see, Andy White there is on drums. And it's just, that's a huge problem, right? Because if you're an early Beatle collector, you're going to think, oh, did Andy White play drums also on the Help album? So that's very odd. Then, on top of that, for the Help album, they do something that I just really don't like at all. And that is, they put their own opinion in here, which I think is so dumb. Let people decide what they want to decide about it. Because this is just supposed to be an album by album collector's guide, not these people's opinion on the albums. And while I think it's okay to every once in a while throw in an opinion, this is to me just very, very weird. So for Help, they wrote this: it may have been a soundtrack to a goofy movie and a somewhat erratic record, but the Beatles' 5th album showed a new maturity as the band expanded their sonic palette. So first off, they're saying that it may have, so they're basically knocking it down a peg already by saying it was only a soundtrack to a goofy movie. Now, Help, I will say, Help is of course not a classic piece of film in any way, but to call it a goofy movie to me is a little bit, I don't know, it doesn't sit well with me for some reason. Because goofy to me is generally regarded as not very good, it was goofy, Then to say a somewhat erratic record, that also to me is a little bit that's a little bit wild to me, because this is the Beatles' Help album, and while it may not be one of the Beatles' best albums, it certainly is not an erratic album in any way, in my book at least. Probably not yours as well. So that just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Then, so this is called an album by album collector's guide, expert buying advice. It says it right there. Expert buying advice. Now, I think it's totally, this is a great concept, by the way. I think it's cool to have this, because obviously record collecting is coming back, especially when it comes to collecting the Beatles. But to say this is expert record buying, that, in my opinion, that means you should know your stuff. You should research this extremely well, and this should be a definitive guide if you're saying you're an expert. Let me show you something that's going to blow your mind. So, for Abbey Road, which of course is a fantastic record that we all love, you get a nice picture of Abbey Road, right? The album looks cool, looks great. If you look a little closer at the record sticking out there, you notice, oh, it's gray. That's weird. I've never seen a pressing like that. If you look even closer, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this on here. There you go. You can see the word Bowie right there. Yes, Bowie, as in David Bowie. So that's a David Bowie record that they stuck in this Abbey Road sleeve to try to make it look like the actual Abbey Road record was in there. And to me, all they had to do, if you want to get away with that, okay, fine. But just push it in a little bit further and we wouldn't see the label. You'd just see the record sticking out. Look, and it would look great. Oh, cool, Abbey Road. But that, to me, right there, tells me they didn't take the time to make sure that things were correct. Because that's a huge, huge problem, a huge omission, in my opinion. So that right there was, right away, was very, just kind of, not very cool. Then, there's more, folks. You get, okay, so they have expert advice. And what they do for each album, at the end of the listing, they list like how to buy. So how to buy Abbey Road. So they give you an idea of like what to look for when you're buying. Now, according to them, the UK pressings are the only way to go. And I will actually kind of agree with that to an extent. And granted, this is a magazine printed in the UK, so obviously they're aiming at UK buyers and all that kind of stuff. But if you're going to say you're an expert, giving expert buying advice, I think you also need to include, you know, some amazing foreign pressings that are known to be fantastic. For example, like the White Album, which we will go back to right over here. How to buy the White Album. So they talk about the mono and stereo debate rages on, which is very true. They talk about early, you know, the early numbered ones fetch a lot of money, and basically that's a key point here. They basically tell you how much the early UK editions of the albums are worth. That's basically what they're telling you. They're not really giving you expert at buying advice. They're just telling you stuff that the normal fan would never, ever, ever come across or ever have. Like, for example, they're like, in 2015, a copy numbered 000001 sold for $790,000. Okay, that's really cool, but the problem is, by the way, I was just Bobby coughing over there, Bobby the cat. The problem is like, that's a cool, interesting figure or whatever, but this is a section called How to Buy the White Album. And back to the other thing, they don't even list like the German pressing that's known, the German stereo pressing is known to be an excellent, excellent pressing. They don't even list it. They just list the UK stereo mono, and they talk about the 2012 stereo remaster, but it's all just very vague. And they don't even, by the way, they don't even touch upon the idea of stampers or checking the stampers or knowing what stampers are good. And maybe that's asking a little bit too much. But when I bought this, I did kind of think like, oh, cool, they're going to like list some, like, what are the good stampers for certain records, and they're going to list foreign, what are the best foreign pressings of certain albums. But there's nothing like that at all. They also have a thing at the beginning, which is kind of worthless. Their opinion of, what is it? It's called like the 40 40 Beatle records. Yeah, here we go. The Essential Beatles. We bring you a beginner's guide to the 40 records no Beatle fan should be without. Okay, 40 records no Beatle fan should be without. So I consider myself a Beatle fan. I love the Beatles. All these records, starting right here, going all the way over here. These are all Beatle records. Okay, I'm a huge Beatle fan. And then that's just Beatles. I have solo Beatles stuff as well, which is on the shelf behind you at the moment. And I have more Beatles stuff in my bedroom. So just a lot of Beatles stuff. So now they're listing all these 40 essential items. A lot of these are records that no one's ever going to have because they're so rare. For example, this Please Please Me, Ask Me Why on Parlophone, that is without the made in Great Britain on the label, which fetches for around 150 pounds. Good luck trying to find that. I don't have that. An original Parlophone, Love Me Do, which is the original early pressing of that, which fetches up to 10,000 pounds. Not going to happen. So just a lot of wild things that they think that you should own. And the craziest one, I will say right now, number 6, they list rock and roll music released in 1976, and instead of listing just the compilation album, which would have been okay because I like that compilation. I think it's cool. They say EMI issued this rare white label 7-inch as a promotional single for the band's forthcoming rock and roll music double album. While one side houses 11 sonic snippets edited into a continuous medley that featured I Saw Her Standing There Backing USSR and Get Back. Okay, right away, that's not essential to anyone to own. It's a collector's item for sure, but I've never even heard of this, by the way. Have you heard of this? I doubt you've heard of this. I've never heard of it. I've never seen it. This is the first time I've ever seen this or knowing it exists, and they're saying it's essential. Then on the flip side, it has 3 minutes plus of monotonous test tones. So I'm guessing that those are just like tones on the back, probably used for the pressing plant or radio station or something that would tell you this is a tone at whatever whatever the hertz would be, the signal to know that this is at the correct speed or whatever, right? It's never for listening. And then they go on to say that it's worth checking on this one, considering the hefty price tag. So I guess they're implying that maybe you have this laying around in your collection, and you should check on it because it might be worth some money. Well, I would know if I had this. I'm pretty sure you would know if you had this. I'm pretty sure even the most novice Beatle fan or record collector would know about this white label record here that has Beatles handwritten on there in a Sharpie pen. And it says, it's the real deal, and it can be identified via the matrix numbers on both sides. They talked about matrix numbers. That's interesting and good. Except they're talking about matrix numbers on this random, very rare, hard to find, but yet essential Beatles 7-inch. And then they also go on to say that in 2015, it sold for 850 pounds. And it says, while clearly a collector's item and little else, this is a highly sought after prize. I don't know about that. Anyway, I could go on and on and on about all the errors and all the just nonsense inside of this magazine that costs $21, which is a lot. And I guess the whole point of this video is more of a cautionary tale. If you're thinking about buying this magazine because you truly want to learn more about the proper pressings of Beatle albums to buy, this is not the magazine for you. If you're buying this magazine because you are just a Beatle collector like me and you buy almost anything that says Beatles on it, then this is a very kind of fun / slightly annoying part to add to your collection. And there's one last thing I need to point out because it's ridiculous. At the back here, they have top 20 solo albums that they think you should have. Okay, which is fine, and that's just their opinion. and I actually kind of agree with all the albums they have on here, except the first album they have on here, number 20, is an interesting selection. First of all, it's Sentimental Journey by Ringo Starr, which I don't think is an essential solo Beatle album that you need to have, let alone a solo Ringo album that you need to have. There are a million other ones that are much better that aren't in this list, like Vertical Man, lots of other ones. Anyway, they have Sentimental Journey. Okay, fine. So then you go on to read about Sentimental Journey. Let me read this to you. Sentimental Journey, by the way, for those of you who maybe don't know or need a refresher, it's an album that Ringo released, all of like old standards, old covers that George Martin helped him put together or whatever. Let me read to you what they're describing here. Longtime country fan Ringo dabbled in the genre during his Beatles tenure, but his second solo album was completely Americana in focus. Recorded across just 3 days in Nashville, engineered by Elvis guitar hero Scotty Moore, this is full of Starr's trademark easygoing charm and Ringo's own unassuming Nashville skyline. Nashville Skyline's a Bob Dylan album. Country and rock and roll alumni abound on the cast, include Charlie Daniels, DJ Fontana, Ben Keith, Charlie McCoy, and the Jordanaires. That's great. Problem is, they're describing Ringo's second solo album, Buku's a Blues, which is an all-country album. This is Sentimental Journey, which they even list as Sentimental Journey. Sentimental Journey, right? And then there's a picture of it. Except this is written about not Sentimental Journey. That's very problematic. Anyway, that's my review of the Beatles' Vinyl Buyer's Bible. No good. But hey, had a little fun with it. Hope you had fun with it. Let me know if you picked this up and what you think about it. And maybe you found some other errors in here that I haven't yet found, because I haven't really... I did read the whole thing and tried to remember all the errors that I remembered in there, but I think there are a lot more. So anyway, that's my Beatle talk for the day, and hope you enjoyed that. And more videos to come of lots of records. Over the weekend, my fiance and I, we absolutely hit a gold mine when it comes to records. And I can show you just a pile here. I think this is over 30 records. These are all classic records, some really valuable jazz records in here from one person's collection. And maybe I'll do a video showing you those very soon. But for now, that's it. Make sure to check out my website, needlemeetsvinyl.com. Check out the new records I've added on there. And that's it. More videos to come. See you later.